When most people think about cybersecurity, their minds jump straight to firewalls and encryption or AI-powered detection systems. And that's understandable because cybersecurity is indeed about those things. But ISO 27001 isn't about cybersecurity, or at least it's not all about cybersecurity. When we start talking about technical controls later, then yes, we're going to talk about some of these areas: firewalls, encryption, maybe even AI to some degree. But ISO 27001 is about information security, which is a broader topic. You see, there's so much more to information security than the technical devices that we use on a day-to-day basis. That's why Annex A7 talks about physical security. It's about the physical security controls. There are 14 of these to consider. And we start with physical security perimeter defenses. We move on to talk about entry controls. We are going to talk about security monitoring. We're going to talk about equipment siting and protection. We're even going to talk about cabling security and equipment maintenance. And then we'll finish with secure disposal and reuse of equipment. So everything from outside the organization, the perimeter, all the way in, and we're going to talk about the physical aspects. Now, like most aspects of ISO 27001, there are overlaps in other control areas that reinforce each other. So you need to think of them as an interweaving web of controls that strengthen each other, not just as a single control that on its own potentially could be weak. So let's get started. Let's talk about the first of these controls, Annex A7.1, Physical Security Perimeter. So what's required? Well, the standard is pretty clear about this. It states that security perimeters shall be defined and used to protect areas that contain information and other associated assets. In simple terms, build the boundary, control who comes in, and keep your people and information safe. Now, although it doesn't mention people here, just remember that in truth, when we talk about informational assets, we are talking about an organization's most important assets, which are its people. Yes, you might have the best technology in the world, the best data, but without people, then let's be honest, your organization isn't an organization at all. That is, of course, until AI takes over and takes all our jobs. But that's for another time. So why is this required? Well, because while sophisticated cyber attacks do grab the headlines, just keep in mind that good old-fashioned thieves and theft and physical intrusion are still commonplace. You see, you could have the best firewall in the world, but if someone walks in and steals your server, well, goodbye firewall. It goes with it. You see, perimeter defenses is, you could argue, is your first physical line of defense. Of course, we always say that people are your best line of defense, but your perimeter controls prevents people from gaining access into your organization, into your homes. It's the lock on your front door. It's the fence around your site. And it's the gate that says, you don't get in unless we know who you are. And remember, it's not just about protecting data. I'm going to keep coming back to this. I'm going to keep on saying it. It's about protecting your people. So let me try and illustrate how this manifests in the real world by giving you some examples. Well, we worked with a pharmaceutical organization during COVID. And during the vaccine rollout, which they were very, very much involved in, this company had journalists and even competitors trying to sneak onto their site. But by strengthening their perimeter security, fences, gates, guards, CCTV, alarms, they kept their sensitive research and ultimately the vaccine safe and avoided any reputational damage and certainly any delays in getting that vaccine out to the world. In another example, I recall working with a law firm that didn't have strong perimeter defenses in relation to their reception area. So imagine the scene. You have a beautiful reception area. It's quite large. They had 3 receptionists, always very busy. They had a fairly expansive space, big double doors into this lovely law firm. During lunchtime, when people were coming in and regularly walking in and out of this multi-story building, the receptionist just couldn't possibly keep an eye on who was entering or exiting the site. So during the lunchtime, a opportunist thief, perhaps who had been monitoring and watching and observing how people entered and exit that building, they walked in during the lunch break with the throng of other people entering and exiting the building, and they simply walked into the lift and went up to one of the floors, and then they simply walked around picking up laptops and other devices as they went. They were challenged on one occasion, but when they were challenged, they simply told that individual that they were new and they worked with the IT team, and in actual fact got someone to help them load the or unplug the laptop and load it onto a cart, enabling them to leave the building. In another example, and this is a more physical example of why this is about protecting people and not just technology and data. In a firm that we worked with, we had helped them improve their perimeter defenses and such, and we trained their staff. And during one occasion, a disgruntled ex-partner tried to gain access to the office so they could confront their ex about some personal matter. So this person didn't work for the organization. They simply wanted to gain access to the site. But because this firm had strong perimeter defenses, people were told not to allow tailgating, for instance, and not to swipe other people into the building who didn't have the correct ID and such. That person was prevented access. And let me be clear about how dangerous this could have been, because it was later discovered that that individual was carrying a concealed weapon, a hammer, in actual fact. Had those perimeter defenses not been in place, had that training not taken place, well, I can only imagine what could have possibly happened afterwards. So, what will the auditor be looking for in this particular control? Well, the auditor is going to want to see physical evidence of perimeter controls. Unsurprisingly, this isn't just about documentation. They're going to want to see that perimeter controls have been considered and thought about. Typically, the auditor will want to step outside the building and start from outside the organization and take a look and see what you've got. Do you have fences? Maybe you have walls, maybe you have hedges around, or clear boundary markers that tell people that this is your premises. They'll want to see things like controlled entry points, like gates, doors, or turnstiles. Now, is it necessary that you have to build these things in? You have to put them in place if they're not? No, but perhaps that's a risk. Only you can determine that based upon who you are and what your organization is. If you're in a very built-up area in the center of a city like London or Leeds or Sheffield, Manchester, etc., then of course it's going to be very difficult to put those controls in place. But the perimeter could also be secured by, of course, windows, shutters, bars, barriers of some description. They're going to want to see also that you've thought about securing the perimeter with CCTV or alarms, for instance. Even on remote audits, expect to give auditors a virtual tour of your site. They'll also want to see things like incident logs, risk registers, because if you don't have these controls in place, maybe it's a risk. it's an accepted risk, but they'll want to see that you've considered it and that you put that on your risk register. And yes, they're going to want to see audit reports. They're going to want to see that you have considered this and that you've thought about it. So what do you need to do? Well, you're going to find this within Annex A7, the physical aspects. A lot of this is about not bums on seats. This is about getting up and walking around and checking things yourself. So this is going to be a common theme here. But first of all, I would always suggest that you walk the perimeter. Physically go outside your building and look for weak points, broken fences, insecure doors, windows left unlatched. Work with your facilities team, or if you're in a rented accommodation, if you're in managed offices, for instance, go and speak to them, speak to the landlord and ask them about perimeter controls that are in place. Maybe there'll be things in there that you aren't aware of. See, they'll know about locks and doors and utilities and maintenance. Just remember that nothing happens in an isolation, in a silo. So work with them. No one's expecting you to do everything. If you're in a managed office, you won't have control over it, but at least you will be in a place of knowledge and have that information. So in order to be able to determine what the level of risk is that you face. And absolutely, you need to train your people. This is absolutely paramount, and this should really be something that I just finish on every single video, because if you don't train your people, then those physical perimeter controls can easily be circumnavigated, and someone could just simply tailgate. We are hopefully very polite people, and we like to help other people. And if you see someone struggling and their arms are full and they've got lots of things, maybe you hold the door for them. Maybe that's not a good thing to do. Maybe you should just ask them, do they have their pass with them? And if they don't, then escort them to reception or to wherever they need to be. But train your staff so that they know that that is something that they need to think about. Make sure that they know to close the door behind them and that they lock up or keep desks clear. And of course, that they report anything unusual. Do they notice someone who they've never seen before, just kind of taking photographs or just loitering and looking as if, you know, they could be a suspicious individual? No one's going to mind you raising the flag, even if it's a false flag. Just don't leave it where you allow an event to become an incident. Now, one question that we get asked around this about physical aspects, and this again is important for organizations who are very remote. They'll say, well, we all work from home, so there are no physical security controls in place. Well, there are always considerations. So again, you may need to consider these, and maybe you add them to the risk register. But certainly for those organizations who ask, well, we're all cloud-based, so does this, is this applicable to us? Yes, because as I've just said, even though you've got people working from home and such, and you've got cloud systems, you still need to think about the perimeter controls around your home. You may just need to have a policy. You need to have some training and awareness where you say to people, remember to log off at the end of the day, lock your office door or lock devices and information in a secure location, or in a secure filing cabinet, that kind of thing. And in co-working spaces, just think about using lockers and privacy screens and such. And think about those clear desk policies and processes, because yes, whilst all the information is cloud-based, but people aren't cloud-based. We're still working physically in this realm, in the real world. So you need to think about the perimeter defenses around them as well. See, physical controls will look differently, but the principles are the same. Keep your information safe wherever it lives. So the key takeaway around this particular control is simply this, that Annex A7 is all about a physical shield. There are 14 of these controls that we're going to go through, and it all starts with that perimeter defenses. So you can't build a strong cyber defense without first securing physical walls, doors, spaces where your people and information actually live. So I hope that's been useful. As ever, consultants like us are here to help and advise and guide on this particular topic of ISO 27001 and indeed all other security controls and such. We help in a way that hopefully makes sense, and we approach it in a very practical and pragmatic way so that it is efficient and effective, saves you time, money, and energy, and hopefully isn't done in a scary way. As I always say, and I always finish, for us, it's all about compliance without complexity. Let's not try and boil the ocean. And that's true of all the controls, and especially when we're talking about the physical aspects of security. So if this video has been helpful and you see the importance of this control, then please do me a favor. I'd love it if you would like this, comment, give it a share, because again, you never know who you might help. Someone may be struggling with this particular control, or indeed Annex A controls in their entirety, and it may just help them. But until next time, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, I'm going to start saying this at the end of every video, I think. Stay well, stay safe, and stay connected. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.